Hello and welcome to our first episode of the Drummers Podcast. Today we will listen to the story of a drummer called Brian Calhoun. He was a student of Mike Mangini and also Dom Famularo. He also studied in Berkeley, and he does have some interesting stories about bands like Godsmack, Lamb of God. I hope you do like this kind of conversations, and if you do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we will have more guests very, very soon. Okay, so let's talk with Brian. Hello there.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine, and you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can hear me good?
Yeah.
Excellent,
Nice spot
excellent.
you have.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you can actually see it better when I do this. Yeah, you can see.
I
Yeah,
wish I have a set like that.
it took me 20 years to put that together. I, I, and honestly, like once I finished my studio, because I have my teaching and recording studio is in the basement of my home. And after I put this kit together, I'm like, I'm never taking it out of here. I now had to buy a new drum set for live.
I do have that. So I have this one. It's a DW Collectors.
Yeah.
Then I have another one just for the road. I
Yeah.
actually have two. I have a small one for like those jazz kits for small clubs, and
Yes.
a similar like this. Really used to it. I can do almost everything on this one. Some people
Oh,
don't
that's.
like DWs. I love it.
Oh no, for me overall, Tama and DW have always
Yeah.
been my favorite drum brands. I just love how versatile they are and how great they sound. So this is like my Mike Portnoy inspired.
Yeah. Let's get started.
Yes.
I have some questions for you.
Sure.
I remember about this because Nam, we met we not didn't actually met in Nam, right? We met in
Uh,
Dennis, waiting for
Denny's,
our
yes.
dinner.
Forever.
Yeah. Nam was kind of a motivational thing that happened to me this year, and you know, I don't know if with you is the same. And there's another question also.
Mm.
Uh, I try to see other people's stories and see other people's lives and how do they manage their time, how do they manage their practice and their careers, and that somehow inspires me to go back on track again. So last time, for example, and it's a coincidence that you were a student. I was driving and put some podcasts of Drumeo, which with Dom. It's amazing how he can inspire people with their words. So I know that you were a student of him from 10 years, right?
Briefly, I met him in 2009, and then again reconnected with him in 2011 at a Chris Adler drum clinic when Chris Adler was still in Lamb of God. Chris was endorsed by Mapex, and so was Dom, and the clinic was on Long Island. I had gone to the bathroom or something, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she ended up striking up a conversation with Dom and was trying to talk him into giving me drum lessons. When I came back, I see my girlfriend talking to Dom Famularo. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, this is amazing. And she knew, like, I looked up to Dom and idolized him and everything. Literally one of the most amazing people I ever met in my life.
Some people have those gifts, right? And he got two. He got the drumming part and also the mentor.
He was such a great speaker that um, so many people didn't realize he was equally as good as a drummer.
Yeah. How do you start to play drums? What was your inspiration? How did it started?
For me, it's my love for music started when I was a real little kid. I was probably younger than maybe my son's age now. My son is only 2. And my parents would tell me stories. I was like rocking out in my high chair watching MTV, which back then that's how everyone got their music.
Yeah.
Twisted Sister and Quiet Riot like kind of stand out to me. And it's ironic because now Dee Schneider, lead singer of Twisted Sister, his nephew is one of my students. So it's like such a small world. So for me, that's so full circle how that happened. That's how my love for music began. And it began with all those 80s groups. And ultimately, when I was 9 years old, I was given the choice to join the school band. and I had my heart set on drums, and I was lucky enough that they selected me
But did
onto
you
the
play
list.
drums before that age?
So before that age, it was the toy drum sets. Like my parents bought me toy drum sets. I had a toy drum set, a toy guitar, a toy microphone, and piano. I guess they all like semi worked,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they weren't like real equipment. But yeah, it had a cymbal and toms and bass drum and snare drum. And I played that for years, from probably about 2 until I was 9, where I actually made the school band, got my first real pair of drumsticks, real practice pad, shortly after a snare drum and then a full drum set. And I just dived head first into that, and it just never stopped for me.
You spend those years playing with the school band and stuff.
Yeah.
Next step, you join another band like with some friends, or you decided like, well, I got to learn a little bit more, so I'll talk to another drum teacher or go to a drum school or something.
So for me, I was obsessed with wanting to be in a band. When I hit 12, I was determined to join my first rock band, and I finally had friends of mine that were playing instruments and playing guitar and bass and singing. And at that time, it's when grunge and alternative music was really like on the rise. So that was my first band. I was 12 years old. We were playing like Nirvana and Green Day and The Offspring, and
There was this drummer. I don't remember. I don't really remember the name, but it was a drummer for a band called Godsmack. It's
yeah,
Shannon
Shannon Larkin.
Larkin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had that video with the drum battle between
Yes, yeah, because the singer is also a drummer.
yeah.
I, really quick and pretty cool Godsmack story. So back when I was in high school, my friends and I, we went to go see Anthrax in New York City. And as we were waiting online to see Anthrax, they were handing out demo tapes. Yeah, cassette tapes. So this was back in the day. And who was the cassette tape? Godsmack. We all had the tiny little demo tape of Godsmack. Like, who's this? So all of us went home, we listened to it. Like, oh, this is awesome. And we went to the record release party of their first album. No one even knew who they
That's
were.
amazing, man.
And there was like 10 people in the crowd. And I think 9 of those 10 people were me and my friends. And it was at a club in New York City. And we went to them. We were blown away. We loved them.
This last time after NAM, I spent a few days in LA, in the center, before going to Toronto and then to Portugal. So I was just walking, and a guy approached me because he
Mhm.
saw my hair and saw that he asked me like, "You are a musician?" And I was, yeah, well, I'm not really a musician. I'm a drummer. Like drummer joke, okay. um, so so he gave me a CD of his work. We talked, and he knew that I was from Europe, and I was trying to buy it. I just had euros, and I didn't have dollars. But it just asked me to, well, listen to it if you like it, since you are a drummer, play some drums in it and send me. And
Mhm.
I did it, and he loved it. So I did a different approach, of course, because it was like a pop artist. It's like a rapper.
That's something that I wish when I was younger, at least, that I let my ego and my snootiness not get in the way, where I was so like metal or die kind of person. I would have taken those pop gigs. Now I like and respect all styles of music, all different types of drummers. I enjoy playing everything. I enjoy teaching everything, and I've been like that for a long time. But back in my teenage years, it
It
was
was just metal. Yeah,
metal, and
me
the only
too.
exceptions I would make is like some rock, classical music, and jazz.
Well, my main thing, I believe, is probably prog metal. My
Uh,
band and the only musicians I played with back then, they were all about prog metal.
Prog metal's awesome, and I could say too, 2 of the nicest and coolest guys that I've ever met in the music industry are Mike Mangini and Mike Portnoy.
You took lessons with Mike Mangini, right?
Yes, yes. Taken a number of lessons from Mike Mangini. And then uh, shortly before coming to NAM, he gave a master class on Long Island. So I finally got a chance to hang out with him and meet him in person. Because I had only been studying with him on Zoom, him up in Massachusetts. And I was studying with him when he was still in Dream Theater. I even took a lesson with him a week after they had won a Grammy.
So it's very important for me, and I believe for people that will see this video after, to
I,
understand like the process
sure.
of other drummers' life, especially the ones that have like all of the scholarship as you do, to understand where to go and what's the goals on every step and
Sure.
what you learn.
I could break that down 100 different ways to Sunday. I'll start with the educational path and
Hmm.
how that works and how my journey was. And believe me, if I could go back and do it differently, I would. I'm doing all the right things now, and I've been doing all the right things for a little while, but I wish I knew what I know now.
I do feel that the lessons I had the first years was just like fixing things and not actually learning something. It was just fixing issues that I have in my posture, my fingers, my technique. It's kind of very difficult when you already play drums to have the patience to do it all again and do all of those single strokes and double strokes.
Dom completely reprogrammed me, and when I went to him, I had been playing drums for 20 years. Everyone, all of us joke about this. Our first lessons with Dom is this. That's it. It's the free stroke technique. And I knew when I was taking that lesson, I'm like, I know this man's a genius. I just got to trust the process.
Cool. Your first drum teacher, the one that you can consider that it was like your first official drum teacher,
Mhm.
was at what age and who?
9 years old, and it was my school band teacher. She was the first one to teach me how to hold a pair of drumsticks, music theory and rudiments, the basic reading and the basic drum beats. Her name was Mrs. Lieberman.
So after that teacher, do you like jump off to another teacher, or you stopped for a little while and then
I,
go to a
I
different
stopped
teacher?
with private instruction, but I had remained in the school band for a few more years, which brought me into middle school. This is where my education began to go on pause as I was more focused on living my dream and becoming super famous playing in a band. And at that time in middle school is when friends of mine really started playing instruments too. So that was an exciting time for me.
And was it on that age that you thought like, okay, this is probably have to start thinking about being a drummer for a career? At that age, you were already thinking like that?
I was already thinking that I wanted it to be my life, and I wanted to make it famous as a drummer in a famous band. I had no idea the path that my life would ultimately take, and where I could have a very successful career as a professional drummer. It went in so many directions that I could have imagined. And I do have a successful career now as a professional drummer, but it wasn't making it famous with a band.
I was exactly with the same goal and the same thing. I didn't want it to be a famous drummer. I wanted to be my band to be like a big band. So I didn't want it to be a session musician, for example. I wanted to have my friend's band from the beginning until the end with me, and we going step by step until the end.
Yeah.
We don't have an end, but like a global tour, and that's it. So one of the things I always liked very much was to be like Gavin Harrison says, is like not being a drummer but being a rhythmic designer. Probably one of my career goals is to be like here, uh, receiving things from other artists and musicians and trying to do my ideas on it and recording and send it to them, and they do whatever they want with it.
That's
So
awesome.
if you want, after that, if you want, they want me to play it live, I'll do. But if you want to take it to another drummer, I'll be fine sitting here and creating new stuff for other people.
Yeah. So for me, I guess if I put it in chronological order, I'll move towards that. So getting back to middle school was my first band, and we were playing like grunge and alternative rock. When I was in high school, I finally started meeting musicians that were able to play metal, which is what I really, really liked. It's just the younger kids, they couldn't play it. But one of my best friends, he could. And I remember him showing up at my house and he played Eruption by Van Halen. I was like, yes!
Yes.
I'm like, I finally have someone. We're playing all the Metallica songs and Iron Maiden and Priest and King Diamond and Testament and Sepultura and Pantera and everything, and he can match me. And then later high school, we started really getting to Dream Theater, and we met a keyboard player who could play all that. So like, all right. So now we're playing
Yeah.
all the prog stuff at like 17, 18. And I remember really impressing people because I was only 18 at the time. So was my guitarist and our keyboard player. He was 16 and blind. So
Wow.
we called him the white Stevie Wonder. He actually ended up becoming an incredible singer as well, on top of playing piano, and ended up on season 1 of American Idol.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
then after high school, I ended up going to music college where I studied music performance and music education and a little bit of music business, just trying to get a feel of things. And that's where my formal studies started happening again. I had been focused so much on playing in a band, which was great because I was developing my ability as a musician. I'm a firm believer that there is a difference between the instrument that you're playing. You could be the best drummer in the whole world and absolutely suck as a musician. You
Yeah.
cannot play music with other people. You're just great on your own. Or you can be an amazing, amazing musician where you play the perfect thing every time for a song. Your writing ability is off the charts, but you're not that great of a drummer on a technical level. Ringo Starr from the Beatles, I believe, is a phenomenal musician. He's a very, very musical drummer who played the perfect things for the Beatles, orchestrated everything brilliantly, but he's not a solo chops kind of guy like Buddy Rich. He's not going to play that kind of
Yeah.
level of a solo.
The feels of Ringo back on those days, I believe it's more about the feeling than the technical playing. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I can be wrong, but I believe that when it comes to the feel, it just close his eyes and let it happen
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah.
like thinking in music and not
You're
in technique.
100% spot on. And one of the things that made Ringo so unique is he was a lefty playing a righty kit. So he would start almost all of his fills was left hand. And I've even seen interviews with Ringo. He's like, everyone thought I was a genius. He's like, no, I was just trying to get over the fact that I was a lefty playing a righty kit.
I learned with that rockabilly band I played for a few years because I was all about the prog and all about the math and the science, and those guys were like, "Play it," and I said, oh no, 1, 2, 3, 4, just play it. How do you know where to start? We are looking at you. It will not fit a time, a correct time, and it was like, what? You have to close your eyes and play, man. Forget about the mathematics of it. Like, just play. And we have some transitions with that, which I was always missing because I was thinking about numbers and doesn't have numbers on some styles of music. Like,
Right.
you have to just close your eyes and feel what it is and let it go. It was an eye opener for me to understand that music is not just about technique, and not just about like the perfection. It's like a painting, or it's like a photograph. I was too focused on being the perfect drummer, you know.
I know
I
exactly
spent
what
a
you mean.
lot of time with that. Actually, I lost it, and now I'm not as technical as I was back then. There are some things that I did back then that I cannot do now. Blast beats and stuff. I was able to do those fast blast beats. I'm not anymore because I don't practice that anymore, and I don't use it. So I believe I'm a better musician today.
The saying, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, yeah,
I know the feeling that happened with me with a lot of Afro-Cuban music where I could play all these different rhythms that I spent a lot of time on, and then I didn't have to teach or do anything Afro-Cuban for a few years. And then when I came back to it, I was like, uh-oh, like I think I forgot how to do this stuff.
yeah,
For
yeah.
me to put in all this work and then to not have it.
But
The
the thing is that we
metal
cannot
especially, that will happen.
have it all on the ready to go, right? If you want to have it all, you will not have all on the level that you want. It's not
Yeah.
always ready to go. Sometimes you need a month to prepare to that gig.
Oh,
And
100%. And I ended up joining this band, Year Confession, when I was in my early 20s. That they were already playing bigger shows on Long Island. They had a following, and their drummer at the time, he didn't want to tour. He didn't want to get bigger. He didn't really want to have any sort of success. And I was only 22. And I was like, I want all that. I'm like, if you don't want it, I'll happily step in. I ended up writing and recording 2 albums with them. Did a bunch of touring. We got to play with some pretty big bands too. And our ongoing joke was, and still is, we were huge on MySpace, which we were. We were like social media pioneers at the time. We had like we had millions of plays on MySpace. We had hundreds of thousands of followers, and we can't prove any of it because it happened way back then on a social media platform that is extinct. It was an odd time because it was the end of CDs. Social media was becoming a thing. And when we stopped going really hard was when Facebook and YouTube had really just started to become a thing. And then I ended up joining another band, Heart of a Lion. And same thing, I played some really cool shows. And the singer of Heart of a Lion went on to, and still is to this day, he's the singer for Fit for an Autopsy. That became like a really successful band.
Yeah.
And Joe even, lead singer Joe Bad, he even filled in for Randy for Lamb of God.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's pretty wild how things are connected. I was in a band with that guy for a little over a year. So really cool to see all the success he's had with Fit for an Autopsy and then get the call to help fill in for Lamb of God for a few shows when Randy was sick. We did have success on MySpace.
Can do it again.
Oh yeah. Now
It takes time, but you can do it.
We're doing it for the love of it. So even though I didn't make it per se, I learned so much that would set me up for the next chapter.
What made you go back to have drum lessons?
It was actually Dom was like the main person that brought me back into taking drum lessons because I wanted to find the right teacher because at that point I had developed a lot of my own that I needed to make sure that the person I was studying with was somebody that was far superior to me, and he's far superior.
You were having personal lessons with him, or was it in Long Island?
Yes. Dom's studio was in Port Jefferson on Long Island. He called it the Wisdom Woodshed, and he built a shed that was like a giant soundproof bunker.
On that stage, what do you think was the main subjects? Of course, there was a lot, but like the main ones that you think that it totally changed your way of approaching the drum set?
Technique. Dom is definitely, arguably, one of the greatest technique drum set teachers and just drum teachers overall of all time. And it's because he learned from some of the greatest technique masters, like Joe Morello and Jim Chapin, who were also unbelievably. He was all about the teacher lineage, and how he learned from the greats, and the greats learned from the greats, and how that information has been passed down over time. Yeah. All the students became a part of that lineage, where it would go from Morello and Chapin to Dom, from Dom to myself and thousands of other students.
I know that she recommended you to one of the top drum teachers in the country.
Yes.
It was for Modern Drummer magazine, right?
Yes.
As one of the tops in the country, and it's not a country with a small business, it's US. Like, so it would not be the same thing. For example, in Portugal, because our market is so small. We have amazing drummers here. We have amazing bands, amazing artists, but the market is small. And comparing to the US, it's like the highest in the world probably. So, being considered one of the top teachers from one of the top teachers and top drummers must be one of the highest points of motivation in your career, right?
Yes, that was so humbling and amazing and wonderful. One of the major things that Dom and I always connected on was our passion for education. He was Yoda You know, this unbelievable fountain of wisdom that just kept on coming and kept on coming and kept on coming. And I definitely felt like Luke Skywalker. Through that, eventually you learn how to use the Force.
I know that you also have the world's first drum corps for people with disabilities.
So that was the unique avenue that I never thought I was going to go down. I was the guy who just wanted to make it famous, playing in a band and become the best drummer and musician that I could be individually. And eventually, somewhere along the path, I fell in love with education and teaching private drum lessons. And then I began to take a very unique turn to have the opportunity to work at a day program for adults with disabilities. It evolved tremendously. I started with just 5 members in a classroom with sticks and pads, and over a decade, it grew to huge.
You like lessons for more than one people at a time. It's like classes,
Yeah.
classrooms, right?
Yes, yes. It was set up very, very similar to a school, except it was made up of adults. It lasted for over a decade. At over 100 members come through it. At our peak, we were 80 members strong, traveled across the country, performed in stadiums and arenas. Like it was
Oh, you do
intense.
performance too.
Yeah, oh
With
yeah, oh yeah. We did like huge history-making performances at some of like the top marching arts events in the country. One of them was something called the DCI World Championships. It was, had to be like 30,000 people.
how do you prepare a process like that and a lesson like that? Because you never know what will happen. You have like an act or a song that you wanted to play. How do you get to step by step until making with that many people in the room?
So it was definitely a learning process. And I credit someone, his name's John Otto, incredible mentor and advisor to me, who was in the World Drum Corps Hall of Fame. He really helped advise me and bestowed upon me a tremendous amount of knowledge on how to transfer what I understood as a private teacher to becoming a director of a drum and bugle corps that not only consisted of drummers, but ultimately would have a front ensemble with people playing mallets and timpani and guitar and bass and keyboards, to adding in brass with people playing trumpet and tuba and instruments like that, to color guard, doing dancing and gymnastics and twirling flags. Like it became a monstrous thing. So for me to understand all that, it was definitely a transition. And back in those days, I was learning as I was going. I was absorbing as much information, and I knew I was doing things that no one had ever done before, at least with people with disabilities. What I began to discover over time was 2 different methods. One is knowing that each person is an individual, that everybody learns differently. Some people learn by watching. Some people learn by listening. Some people need to have the sheet music in front of them. And being able to understand how each person learns and then adapting the lesson plan to them. And then working towards a large scale performance, it was a little bit at a time. And you constantly focus on that same show for a year to 2 years until you reach that moment where you're finally gonna take off and do it.
Learning is a long way process, right? It's never from a day to another. And it's a thing that we're even knowing that sometimes we try to push it because we want it to the next day. So
Yeah.
it's not forgetting, but we want it so much that we kind of and that's a root of being dismotivated on
Mm.
the week after. Talking about motivation,
Yes.
how do you manage your time, and not just today, but like through your process? It happens to me sometimes, and from time to time, that I'm having a lot of students, which is good, and I like it very much, but it takes a lot of my energy and time, and I cannot focus on myself. Sometimes it happens with artists, so I'm having a lot of shows, a lot of songs to learn, and I don't have time to practice and to learn new things and to for myself, you know? Does it happen with you too? Or you are
Uh,
one of those guys that can manage the each time for everything?
I think it happens with everybody. And if even the most successful people in the world, they may be better at managing everything. All of us it can find it challenging in some way, shape, or form. So for me, it's all about balance. A lot of these lessons are things that Don taught me, and lessons with him weren't just drum lessons, they were life lessons too. Understanding that balance, and to truly be a successful drummer and to be a successful musician, it's going to change over the years. Even our discussion today, we could see how much that my career has changed over the years, and so has yours. Yeah. Your goals as a teenager and in your 20s and in your 30s and furthermore in your 40s is different. You know, it evolves tremendously over time, and I'm sure my career is going to evolve even more, as will yours. It's about understanding that balance between, you know, number one is your family. Whether it's your parents, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your cousins, or it's your wife, your children. Family always comes first, and then you have your close friends, many of which we may consider family. And that's number one. That's always paramount in everybody's life, because the greatest legacy that we can ever leave is the legacy of our loved ones remembering us. Those are the ones that are going to carry us forever. Yeah. The next balance is the balance of the drummer and the musician. And what are you passionate about? Where do you want to focus your energy? And we need to work smarter, not harder. For me, I know that my passion is education, but it's also something that I'm able to monetize and support my family on. The drum line that I ran for a large nonprofit for over a decade, those are things that's my passion, that I truly love. But I'm able to monetize, I'm able to make money doing what I'm truly passionate about.
Of course.
And that's able to support my other passions with playing in a band and finding extra time to do those types of things. But that balance changes. In my 40s, the main thing that I make a lot of time for is education, because I can now do what I love and support my family doing what I love. At certain points, you need to figure out what that percentage is between education, between being the performer, being the musician, being the studio guy. Even for yourself, you have pieces of all those things where you're doing studio work, you're teaching, you're still performing.
I really love each part of it. I kind of manage that, but there are some times that it's very, very difficult to find and to manage the time to do it all, and also have knowing that we have to spend time with the family, we have to spend time outside of the studio too, we have to spend time with friends. And there were a few years, and sometimes like I did some mistakes about that, about the priorities. And it's hard because you don't notice, you just notice when you kind of losing something already.
I know that feeling. For me, it's social media. I'm struggle to find time to really produce good content on social media, even though I understand how to do it. I understand video editing, I understand audio editing, but in order to do it at a certain level, it needs time. You need time to film, time to edit, time to... The latest challenge has been, how can I simplify that process so I could put out decent content frequently, but I'm not killing myself. Something is better than nothing, but you don't want to put out garbage. Find that happy medium where this is something that I'm happy with and I'm proud of, but I know it's not the absolute best, because I'm not trying to make it necessarily as a YouTuber, but I understand, since my main focus is education, I need to make sure that that's an extension of what I do, because people look at your social media as your EPK, your electronic press kit.
Yeah, it is. It is very important these days. Yeah. When you were in your 30s, because we talk about the 20s and the 40s, but not about the 30s.
So for me, the struggle in my 30s was I became this performance director. I started feeling in my heart, I'm not really teaching like I like to teach anymore. I'm becoming this businessman. I'm not practicing drums for me anymore, and I could feel my abilities declining massively. So that was the tough part. And honestly, the pandemic was the thing that I turned my life around in those respects. Turned lemons into lemonade, and then lemon pie and lemon everything in the world I possibly could. You know, one door closed, my job at the nonprofit, due to so many changes during the pandemic, but it opened the door for me to start my own company, start my own business, get back to teaching with what I was truly passionate about, get back to playing and practicing, get back to taking lessons. That's when I went back to college. And then I never had the time, I never had the money, and I didn't have the ability. Now I'm like, it's now or never. Went back to college, studied at Berkeley, took a ton of lessons with Dom. This is when I started studying with Mike Mangini.
Yeah, it's a teacher there, right?
So Mike was, and then he gave up his job as a professor at Berkeley to join Dream Theater.
Yeah.
But it was good because at the time I was taking private lessons with Mike, I was also studying at Berkeley. So he was like helping give me insight. So I wasn't trying to enter like an official degree program. I was just taking the courses that I wanted to. But the advantage of it was I was able to get a professional certificate from Berkeley. I got to study with the professors I wanted to study with. From Euron Israel, who's the chair of the percussion department there, Rod Morgenstein, who actively plays with Winger now, but with the Dixie Dregs, and Jim Payne, who's a world-class funk and R&B drummer. It refined everything I felt that I had lost.
Do you do it online or personally?
No, online.
It is for goals, right? So you don't have to have like real, you can have the real lessons, but you can do it at your time and your schedule, right?
You can, but there's deadlines. And they send you all the information, and then you have a meeting once a week with your professor. You have to record and submit a video based on that lesson plan. You've gotten a chance to ask the professor a bunch of questions. Chances are he demonstrated everything for you. So it depends on what you're pursuing. I got my professional certificate in drums, but there are others, and all of that too is accredited towards whatever degree.
I will just ask you a few contact informations for us to end, for people here to,
Sure.
if they wanted to have lessons with you, how can they do that?
You can reach out to me through social media or just my official website, briancalhoundrums.com. You can book a lesson with me from anywhere in the world online and play safely through PayPal.
And it's for any levels, right?
Any level. There's certain areas that I specialize in. Reading, definitely technique. I've studied with some of the top technique guys in the world, and I could see minute little details that the most people cannot, and which I certainly credit to Dom Famularo and to Bill Bachman and to Joe Bergamini and Mike Mangini, some of the people that are instrumental in developing me. I could certainly teach every style of music, but certain styles definitely more advanced than others. There's so much that you could go over with just a pair of sticks and a drum pad. There's so much that I could see. And everything on the pad can certainly apply to a full drum set. It's all about finding the right teacher for you that could connect all of those dots. A lot of people don't realize that only do classical percussion or only do marching percussion or drum set. But all three worlds connect. You just have to know how to change the feel. Each style of music is like learning a different language. We have the main language that we speak, and some of us can speak more than one language.
Brian, thank you very, very much for your time, and especially for the knowledge you shared.
I sincerely appreciate it.
This is amazing to talk with drummers like that, and that's why I wanted to share with the drummers here.
The number one thing is never stop learning, never stop growing. I mean, even think of Neil Peart at the height of his career in the 80s. Rush was one of the biggest bands in the whole world. Most people looked at Neil at that time as the best drummer of the world, or certainly the best rock or prog rock drummer in the world. And he started taking jazz drum lessons because he realized his jazz isn't quite as good as his rock. I'm there right now. I'm taking advanced jazz drum lessons and Afro-Cuban lessons myself because I realize I'm not on the level on those styles of music comparatively to other styles of music that I could play fluently without even thinking about it. I can play jazz and Afro-Cuban, but not on a master level. So that's even a journey for me.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And we definitely got to stay in touch from Denny's to...
Sure, we will.
I got to come over to Europe. I love to visit over there.
You have a house and a studio here, so be welcome anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man.
Take care.
Bye. Take care. So thank you very much for watching the video. I hope this was as useful for you as it was for me. I learned a lot with Brian, and I hope I will learn even more in the future. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave the like button. It helps a lot, and we will have more stories and conversations like this. Also, unboxing of new products, reviewing, and some drum covers and drum lessons. So thank you very much. See you next time.